Hey, deep divers. Ready for a deep dive into something kind of wild?
Yeah.
Ever think about AI like actually writing the rule book for companies?
Right in the rule book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not just filling out forms, but like
Yep.
actually drafting the guidelines and
Oh.
stuff,
Oh, that's interesting.
right? And that's what we're diving into today. We're taking a deep dive into this podcast episode from Speech Insights. It's called Intelligent SOP Generation, AI as a writer, and it really got me thinking about how AI is like changing how companies work, especially in fields like, pharmaceuticals or manufacturing.
Yeah, and the thing that's really interesting is how they're using it for standard operating procedures.
SOPs.
Yeah, SOPs, exactly.
Okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with like the technical terms,
Sure.
SOPs are basically those super detailed instructions that make sure everything runs smoothly, especially in those industries that are really heavily regulated. It's kind of like, you know how you get those instruction manuals when you're putting together furniture?
Yeah.
SOPs are kind of like that, but for like really important stuff, like making sure medications are manufactured correctly. They're super important for making sure things are done right every time.
Definitely. And of course, for making sure that everything's following all those regulations.
Exactly.
And that's actually where the traditional way of making and updating SOPs can become a real problem.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, right?
It takes a ton of time, and it's
Mhm.
really easy to make mistakes. And honestly, it's just not the most exciting work.
Definitely not. Like, it's important, but it can really slow things down.
Mm.
But this podcast episode talks about how AI can actually like totally change how SOPs are created.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's like AI is stepping in and saying, hey, let me handle this tedious stuff.
So how does it even work?
Yeah.
Like, how can AI write an SOP?
Well, it starts by looking at a bunch of data from different places, like sensors on those production lines you were talking about,
Very good.
information from databases, even those Internet of Things gadgets.
Wow, it really pulls from everywhere.
It does. It's incredible, really. It
Yeah.
takes all that information and actually uses it to write a first draft.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So no more like someone having to sit there for hours trying to figure out the regulations and write them all out.
Exactly. And get this, it doesn't even stop there.
Oh,
Once it's got that draft, it can actually spot any issues, like if there are inconsistencies or things that don't quite add up.
it's like a built-in editor.
Yeah, a quality control expert.
That's amazing.
Right. And in an industry like pharmaceuticals, where even a tiny mistake can be a huge deal, that extra layer of accuracy is super important.
Definitely. It makes you wonder, though, with AI doing all that detail work, what does that mean for the people who used to do those jobs?
That's the really cool part. Instead of being stuck with those tedious tasks, people can focus on the things that really need a human touch.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
Right, like things that require creativity or, complex problem-solving strategic thinking.
So instead of getting bogged down in the nitty-gritty details, they can focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly.
It's like working smarter, not harder.
Right.
But let's get real for a second.
Okay.
This all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work in the real world?
Well, that's what's so cool about that podcast episode. They gave a really good example from the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay, so it's not just hype.
No. They were saying how AI is being used to generate not just basic SOPs, but even those super complicated regulatory documents.
The ones they need for like drug approvals and
Yeah.
stuff?
Exactly.
Wow. And what kind of results are they seeing?
Well, companies are saying they're saving a ton of time.
How much time are we talking about?
In some cases, they're seeing a 30% reduction in the time it takes to create those documents.
30%. That's huge. So not only is it faster, but I bet it's way more cost effective too.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in pharmaceuticals, it's so competitive. Saving time and money like that, it can really give them an edge.
That's wild. So it's not just like automating a task, it's like changing the whole game for these companies.
Huh. Right. And it makes you think about like what it means for the people doing this work.
Yeah, for sure. With AI taking over these complicated tasks, does that mean there won't be jobs for people?
A lot of people are worried about that. But I think it's more about changing how we work, not getting rid of it completely.
Okay, I see what you mean.
It's like, yeah, AI can handle the rules and the repetitive stuff, but that frees us up to use our strengths, like our creativity and problem-solving skills.
So it's more like AI is a tool to help us, not replace us.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe it'll even create new jobs we haven't even thought of yet.
That's a cool thought. It's not like we're just along for the ride. We can actually shape how this all plays out. Well, deep divers, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
We talked about how AI is like stepping up and taking over the sometimes boring but super important job of creating and managing those SOPs.
Yeah, and how it's not just about doing it faster, it's making things more accurate. A&D making us rethink what work even looks like in the future.
It's crazy to think how much AI is already changing things, even in ways we might not notice right away. If you're as fascinated by this AI stuff as we are, we want to hear from you. Head over to our social media and tell us what you think. Until next time, deep divers.